Good. So my name is Alessandro, and I am part of this company, Italian company, who have two locations, one in the northeast side of Italy, and one in France, Bordeaux. Our knowledge comes from our private research and also from partnerships with institutions and also with universities, and this permit us to reach our goal. That is our main job. It means training the workers in the wineries with our method of pruning, because we are talking about vine pruning. We work, as I told you, in Italy, in most part of Europe, because we have also, as I told you, a location in Bordeaux, and also in United States, California, Argentina, South Africa. We investigated the effects that the pruning would have on the plant physiology, and particularly on in respect of what? The plant physiology structure, the vascular system transport and storage, the aging potential of the vine, and the susceptibility or resistance to trunk disease. Let's start why we prune. Many reasons because we prune, but the most important are to maintain a balance between the vegetative growth and fruiting, to maintain the training system, and to maintain the vine in the space we trellis it. And how we do this? The most common practices to prune, for example, cane pruning, is the retron cut and the head management of the top of the trunk. What means? Retron cut, usually when you trellis a vine in a guillot or cane, when you reach very fast the level of the wire, the most common practice is to leave a spur right here, and when this spur have two very good canes, a big cut is made right here. And it means we are going to make a cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old wood. And not only in these young vines. It's common to find this retron cut also in old vines like this, and the cut for sure is much more bigger, and sure the wound is very big. And it's very common also to make this practice 2 times. When I make the first time and I reach very fast the wire, I made a second retron cut, and this is a big retron cut. The same in the cordon. Vegetative tip can be managed this way. It's very common to leave a sucker right on the base of the vegetative tips, and also to take a lot of small cuts all around the same place. It means hold. Because all these cuts have an influence in this area. And I mean, if I'm going to cut this vegetative tip, this arm very old, and I am going to make a very big, important cut in the old wood. And we said, what happened after we made this big cut under this big wound? What happened inside? And the same, when we make all these small cuts, what happened inside? Our idea has been great in the past, and was to section all these trunks, these arms, and check what it was inside. And we discovered this. The first reaction of the pruning of the cut is a desiccation cone. It means each time I cut, a desiccation cone is created below this cut, and this cut produce this desiccation cone, and more big is the cut, more big is the desiccation cone, and more old is the wood I'm going to cut, and more deep is the desiccation cone inside the vine. And the consequences is also fungi disease, is alteration or interruption of the vascular system. This is what we discovered when we start to section the vines. For example, this is a cane-trained vine, and it's not possible to see the pointer. Well, you see on the right side of this vine, a big return cut has been made, and look how deep and big is the desiccation area right right under this big cut. And the consequences, I told you, is always not desiccation area, desiccation wood, but it's also a reduction of vascular system, because in this area we are going to lose the transport system. Our sap here don't flow anymore, and only one side is with living wood. And the worst situation is when we cross the cuts. In this slide, you can see this return cut, another one in the other side of the vine, another one in the other side of the vine. So the desiccation cone created here is going to reach the other one, is going to reach the other one. So the sap flow here flow in a very bad way. And worse when we have young vines, because the diameter of the trunk is smaller. So it means if I make two crossed cuts, one here and one here, maybe two here, we are going to close this road. I can call this road, this path. And the same when you manage the top of the trunk, for example, cane training system, double arcure, double band, guyot, a lot of small cuts in the same area. Inside, the situation is like this. It's going to be dried all this area, the top of the trunk, and only the sides are very good and still with living wood. And now is the reason, because we have this normal, I can say, cane here, and no canes are in this area. The same in the cordon. If I manage the cordon with the hold positions, it means 3 hold position, means don't leave this point, this vegetative point to grow. And I have several small cuts all over this vegetative tip. Inside, the situation will be this. The subflow don't reach the spurs in a proper way, and whoops. And here you see it's not possible for the subflow to reach the spurs on top of these positions. So it's normal that these canes will be not regular, will be feeble, irregular, and most of the times this vegetative tips is going to be die and lose the vitality. And not only the vitality of the, in this side work? Yes, work. And not only the vitality of the vegetative tip, it's going to be bad also the vitality of the permanent structure of the vines. It means the cordon. So this is another slide that can resume. No proper pruning. The vine don't grow with branches. Big wounds or many small wounds in the same area influence the vitality and the longevity of the vine, for sure. Because inside the situation is very bad, is a lot of die wood. The situation is this inside. So means that few wilty wood means less reserves, for sure. The effects of the pruning is also a reduction of the quantity of living wood, interruption or of vascular system, increased heterogeneity in the vine and in the vineyards, lower yield, and for sure increased susceptibility to the trunk disease. So in order of this, we fixed a pruning method that is called Simonite and Cirque. We want to tell this, who is based in 4, I can say, basic concepts. The first one is let the vine create branches or arms, respect the vascular system, position of the cuts in the same side, small cuts. It means when I'm going to make a small cut, I preserve the basal buds, and when I'm going to cut wood 2 years or more older, I have to leave a spare wood just to limit the influence of the desiccation cone. It means the cordon must to develop branches like this. Don't leave spurs on the base of the branches just to stay low, because you are going to make a big cut. Leave it only when absolutely necessary. And if you make this, the result is something like this. So all the canes in the spurs are regular, same diameter, I mean. Each cluster have the same portion of leaves. And of course is much more reach the goal of the homogeneity. The subflow in this case reach the spurs in a more natural way, I can say. The cuts are small, and each side, of course, it means this is a cross cut, but very small cuts permit to have enough living wood here and enough space to for the subflow to reach the spur. Inside, the situation is like this. So you will find for sure small parts of the desiccation cone, small parts of dyewood, but the subflow can reach the spur in a proper way. It's not so much influenced by the cuts. Instead of I mean, more hilty wood, I don't know why I don't work very fast. I mean, more hilty wood in this case means more reserves. More reserves means much more possibility to have homogeneity of the canes, of the shoots, because on top of the spur, the canes are very regular, much more homogeneity in the bud breaking, much more homogeneity in the ripening of the clusters, in the blooming. And this could be the better situation for a cordon, for example, where instead to grow vertically of the vegetative tips, I leave all my cuts in one side, like this. If I cut a vegetative tip, you see all the cuts are in one side, so the development, the growth of the vegetative tip is not vertical, but oblique, like this. So here is the better situation for sure, because all the cuts and all the desiccation cones are in only one side. So no cross cut, no cross desiccation cone, and so the subflow here have a much more better possibility to reach the spur on top of the vegetative tip. So as I told you now, the goal, if you respect the subflow and if you have much more living wood, is much more balance in the bud breaking. You see all the canes here have regular shoots, much more homogeneity in the ripening, much more homogeneity in the number of vines living that are alive in the vineyard. Much more fertility for sure, because you have much more reserves that can be available for the vine. Much more homogeneity in the ripening. I mean, each cluster have the same compounds as the others. And you can imagine if you have a shoot long and a shoot small, you have a different number of leaves that are available for this cluster. So more leaves for this cluster means more possibility to have a very good ripening. In this case, it's very in evidence. This vegetative tip growed vertically, so means he had cross cuts, but not so big, small cuts, respecting the basal buds when removed. So the grow is like this. And look at the canes are very similar, regular, same diameter. The other one, look, here has been made a very big return cut. And in this situation, you can see the vigor of the canes is different. And what I wanted to tell you before, the cluster who is in this cane or shoot have much more possibility to have a good ripening than the cluster that is located in this shoot, because don't have too much leaves upper to grow. So if you check the evolution of the trunks, for example, in the cordon, the start is always nice inside. You will see living wood. Why? Because you don't make too much cuts yet. But if you don't have a proper way to cut, the evolution can be this. Important desiccation cone, a cordon with important dry areas, and maybe you are going to lose part of the cordon, so you need to renew with the extension. That is not a goal for me. The extension is never a goal. It's a compromise. So you have to respect the cordons. Instead, if you work with a proper way, you start always good. The situation inside, as I told you before, is good because you still don't put your hands there. And when I say put your hands, I mean you don't cut yet too much. And if you prune in a proper way, the evolution of the cordon is like this. Inside is very in evidence. The living wood is much more important, and more living wood, as I told you before, and it's very, very important for us, is more reserves for the vine. And more reserves means more balance in everything of the vine. And for sure, when is going to be old, this cordon, have a little bit of desiccation areas, but not so much. The same in the cane. Usually, the normal traditional pruning is to contain the vine like this. And our method instead is exactly the opposite. We want don't to stay close to the top of the trunk, but we want to develop two arms, even in the cane, two big arms that must be respected for all the life of the vine. I mean, you have to put all the cuts, as you see in this slide, on top of the trunk. Never touch with the cuts the sides, this side and the other side. You must respect these sides and accumulate here dormant buds, because in case an accident, I mean broken here, the tractor, the wind broke something, you have more opportunity to have shoots that come from this area cause the dormant buds. And if I have some dormant bud here, it will be dried by the desiccation cone. That is better for me because I don't want nothing in the middle of the trunk. So here is the pic show the start of the young vine with the cuts on top. And we don't have to make this, exactly the opposite we have to make. Because if I touch the side, I told you I'm going to have an interruption of the subflow, and the buds, the dormant buds here will be dry. So we want this, the subflow in the side. For example, this slide is very interesting because this old vine with two very important arms has been cut once in a side, one time in a side, with a very big cut, and inside the situation is like this. Right under this big cut, the situation is like this with a lot of dry and dry wood. In the other side, that we never touch the side with the cuts, the situation is very good and the subflow reach the spur or the cane in a normal, proper way. Look, this side is very damaged, the other side is good. So for this rule can be applied in each string system. For example, if I have double cane, I don't have to put all the cuts like this, up and down, but I have to leave the cuts only on top, in the middle of the trunk. And the cordon, the same. I told you before, I don't have to leave cuts all over. I have to leave my cordon develop branches. I can develop perfect with only cuts in one side. This is perfect. But for me, it's good also with small cuts in each side, but small cuts, and this don't influence the subflow. The situation, the same in the cane. You start always with the young vines with no bad situation inside, but the development of the vine, if you cut in a not proper way, will be this. A lot of dry wood inside, instead of this. Instead of this, that is very good, the start. And if you maintain, you keep the vine with the proper pruning, you will reach this goal that is an old vine with not too much dry wood inside and a lot of living wood. This is the evolution. No proper pruning, you lose a lot of vitality. This is the goal. This is the goal. We need an efficient vascular transport system, and thanks for your attention. If you have any question, tell me more. Thanks.
So we have 1 minute for questions. If someone wants to ask Sandro.
There is one question.
Okay.
Did you study the effect of sealing the pruning wounds as with latex on the desiccation cones?
Sorry, I didn't.
Comment on fait pour préparer la prochaine?
Au cas où il veut montrer les images.
Ouais, ok.
C'est pas très rapide.
My question was, did you study the effect of sealing the pruning wounds as with latex on the desiccation cones?
Maybe you can help me. I didn't understand very well this sealing.
The pruning wounds. With what type of products do you have in mind?
Okay, understood now. Yes, of course we are part of an international group who is studying in this moment the trunk disease, and they call us in Bordeaux just to explain our method that is a prevention, not a cure. Huh? And there they speak a lot about the seals. In this moment, for me, not everyone knows this, because I can say half of the researchers told me you have to put something to protect the wound, and the other they say don't put, because if you put something very, I can say, not fluid, between the wound and this material remain an area with a lot of moisture. so means it's much more dangerous for the fungi disease, maybe. So it's not in my skills, maybe some pathologists can say more than this.
Thank you, Sandro. And actually, we have a great pathologist coming.
Exactly.
Just after you.
We have another one, very good, so the question could be made to him. Thank you.
Thank you. There is one last question.
This one may be in the class of stupid questions, but it wasn't clear to me how you're controlling the growth underneath the vine. So if you're only pruning on the top, say the cane pruning example, does that mean you're addressing the shoots when they're green so you don't have to make pruning cuts?
Well, you have to start since the young vine. For sure, it's a better situation when you start with a young vine. So just to tell you something very short, I can tell you, you have to start to preserve the subflow since the young vine. So it means you just follow the side of the trunk. You establish 2 exits, I can say, when you establish the vine, means 2 spurs like this. So you follow the side, and you have to start with 2 spurs like this, okay? So 2 spurs means I have to choose always the bud in the subflow and one more, just because 1 year later, with the bud in the below side, it's my next year spur, and with the bud in the top of the spur will be my next year cane. When I'm going to remove this, the cut is in the middle, and the cut remain above. So you start to leave all the cuts on top of the vine, and you never touch the side. If you cut once the opposite way, the spur, it means the first bud on top and the second bud below. It's not easy, no? Because you must make a cut right below, and this is an interruption of the subflow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandro. No, I think
Thank you.